There is a dent in the leading edge of the wing, no bigger than a thumbprint, and no one on the salvage team can explain why it's the only mark on the aircraft that was actually filed and smoothed by hand. That question sits, unanswered, on a workbench at Naval Air Station San Diego, California, in the autumn of 1942, next to a fighter that should not exist in American hands at all. The aircraft is a Mitsubishi A6M0, and this one is nearly whole. It came down hard in a bog on Akutan Island in the Aleutians. Its pilot, a young Japanese naval aviator, killed instantly when the wheels caught in soft ground and flipped the plane onto its back. He was 20 years old. His identity tags would later place him with a carrier air group, one of hundreds of pilots trained to the same exacting standard, and his death here, in a marsh nobody back home would ever hear of, is treated by the recovery crew with quiet, procedural respect and nothing more. A fishing boat crew spots the wreck weeks later. A Navy salvage team hauls it out, crates the fuselage, and ships it south by barge and rail, past sentries who have no idea what they are guarding. The man waiting for it in San Diego is Lieutenant Commander Eddie Sanders, not a scientist, not an aeronautical engineer, but a test pilot, the kind of man who understands an airplane through his hands and his inner ear before he understands it through a slide rule. And there is one finding waiting at the end of all this, buried so deep in the flight logs that it will take weeks to surface, that will leave Sanders' own ground crew standing in silence when they finally understand what they are looking at. First though, there are numbers. The Zero weighs 2,410 kilograms empty. The American F-4F Wildcat, its opposite number in the Pacific, weighs 3,176 kilograms empty, nearly a third more. Physics does not negotiate. That missing 766 kilograms has to come from somewhere, and Sanders' crew goes looking for it methodically, panel by panel. They expect to find it in the usual places. Armor plate behind the pilot's seat, self-sealing lining in the fuel tanks, redundant hydraulic lines doubling up in case one line is shot through. They find none of it. The seat back is bare aluminum. The fuel tanks, when tapped, ring hollow and untreated. There is no armor anywhere in the airframe, not a single plate. Chief Mechanic Rufus Coleman runs his hand along the inside of the wing spar, feeling for a doubler plate that isn't there, and says it plainly to the men standing around him. This aircraft was designed by someone who had already accepted that the pilot might not come home. In the Solomon Islands that same year, American pilots are losing Wildcats to Zeros, at a ratio that unit intelligence officers are reluctant to write down in full. They do not discuss it. They go back to work. The testing begins in earnest on September 20th, 1942, with Sanders in the cockpit and a stopwatch in his hand. His notes, in the clipped shorthand of a test log, confirm the aircraft's reputation before they complicated: exceptional turn radius, rate of climb at low altitude unmatched by anything in the American inventory, ailerons light and responsive up to roughly 320 kilometers per hour. Then, at 480 kilometers per hour in a dive, something changes. Sanders' handwritten note from that flight reads almost apologetically. Ailerons lock up, stick goes rigid, aircraft will not respond to roll input. Above that speed, the control surfaces effectively freeze. In plain terms, past 480 kilometers per hour, the Zero stops being an agile fighter and becomes, for a few critical seconds, a glider that cannot turn. The cause is not a mystery once the crew opens the wingskin. The Zero's designers shaved every gram of structural weight they could from the wing to achieve that legendary turn rate, using thinner aluminum skinning and lighter control linkages than any comparable Allied fighter. That same light skin flexes and distorts under the aerodynamic load of a high-speed dive, twisting just enough to bind the aileron cables against the airframe. The maneuverability and the failure are the same design decision, seen from two different speeds. Sanders pushes the dive again on a second flight, past 500 kilometers per hour, to rule out a fluke. The result repeats exactly. If an enemy pilot had followed an American fighter into a fast dive expecting to stay on its tail, he would have found himself locked rigid and unable to correct at the worst possible moment. That evening, the test notes sit on a plywood table in the hangar office, and for a while, nobody says anything. Coleman looks at the numbers a long time before he speaks. This is not a flaw, he says finally. It is the bill coming due for every gram the Zero's designers refused to carry. Chief designer Jiro Horikoshi had one governing instruction from the Imperial Navy: build a fighter that could outturn and outclimb anything in the sky, and he had delivered exactly that, at a cost that would only become visible at the edge of the flight envelope. If this is the kind of history you want to spend time with, the kind where a war turns on a filed-down dent and a stopwatch rather than a battlefield, there is more of it waiting for you, and the story is not finished yet. The report reaches Admiral William Halsey's staff within weeks, and out of it comes a doctrine 4 sentences long. Do not turn with a Zero. Do not slow down to fight a Zero. Dive away from a Zero and use your aircraft's structural strength to escape. Return in pairs, never alone. Grumman's next fighter, the F-6F Hellcat, is built directly against this data. Heavier, faster in a dive, and deliberately less nimble at low speed, because low-speed agility was never going to be the fight America chose to have again. There is one more finding, and it never appears in the public version of Sanders' report. Buried in the classified annex is a second threshold. At high speed and negative G loading simultaneously, the exact combination a pilot experiences pushing over the top of a dive. Wing flutter approaches the point of structural separation. No Allied tactic was ever built to deliberately induce it. It simply sat in a file, a known weakness nobody needed to weaponize, because the dive and disengage doctrine already avoided it by accident. Today that same airframe, rebuilt and repainted, sits under museum lighting at the National Naval Aviation Museum in Pensacola, Florida. Visitors walk past it and see a sleek, fast, almost delicate fighter, admiring the clean lines of a wing they assume was simply well made. None of them run a hand along the spar the way Coleman did, and none of them know that the same lightness that makes it beautiful to look at is the reason it lost. Sanders never spoke of it as a triumph. He spoke of it as a debt paid in hindsight. A fighter that had already told its enemies exactly how to beat it, in a dent no one thought to ask about, on a workbench in San Diego, long before anyone thought to look.